All right, this is day 2 of your Chapter 10 research project. And for day 2, you should have already identified the syndrome or the chromosome syndrome you think your patient suffers from or lives with. And your next job is to try to better understand what caused this syndrome. What happened during meiosis, and what happened from heredity, or when the child was conceived, when the sperm and egg fused and to form the child. What happened in both those situations, both forming the gametes and when the gametes came together and formed the child? What went wrong, or what explained overall what created that syndrome that they inherited? All right. In order to do that, now that you know what syndrome they have, all you have to do then is to look at it. And I'm going to continue with the example of Down syndrome. And for each syndrome at Learn Genetics, and you just go back to the website, don't worry. If you need to review on how to get to that website, watch video 1 again for Research Day 1. And you have the 4 or 5 different syndromes possible. All right, and for each syndrome, it kind of provides an explanation based on what happened with chromosomes during meiosis. So it'll explain which chromosomes involved, which is very important. And this section right here, how do people get whichever syndrome you're looking at, it'll explain what happened during meiosis with that specific chromosome to have led to the syndrome, right? And in this example, it says it's chromosome 21. It said there was 3 copies of 21. Not only that, but we know it's caused by something called nondisjunction. Nondisjunction happens when a pair of chromosomes fail to separate during egg or sperm formation. So this is key right here. This tells me that chromosome 21 did not separate properly during meiosis. And I use that information specifically when filling out this box right here. This is the meiosis section. So you're trying to show meiosis, right? So in a series of divisions and working with chromosomes, I show you how to kind of draw the chromosomes here. You want to label that this, if your patient had Down syndrome, which they don't, but if they did, you would label this homologous chromosome pair right here, number 21. You'd place them in the starting position right here, and then you slowly show them divide. Now for Down syndrome, my job would be to draw and show the homologous chromosomes separating, except that in one of these, the homologous chromosomes didn't separate, and one egg would end up getting more than it should because the homologous chromosomes didn't separate into individual sister chromatids. Remember, if any of these words sound not familiar, you need to go back through your notes and go over these terms right here. Homologous chromosome, sister chromatid. These are big ones, right? And of course, they're in your notes. Starting with slide 35, 37, 39. They all deal with the terms homologous chromosomes and sister chromatids. And that'll help you understand it, okay? So go back and study if you need to for those terms. I don't want you to get confused. Anyhow, so the website helps us fill this out. And how exactly to do this? It's going to take some problem solving, and I'm here to help. You just bring the work to me, and I'll give you some guidance. But watching this video should get you started, and before you come over to me, I should see some things placed into these cells that show you're trying to show separation or a lack of separation with whatever chromosome is involved in your syndrome. Once you get that sorted, you're going to label and circle the gamete responsible for producing the syndrome. So one of these eggs or one of these sperm, now remember, you got to blame a parent. So you decide, was it mom or dad that probably had the chromosome issue during meiosis? So go back and read the family history, and you'll find that one parent probably had something going on more than the other, whether it was age or if they smoked. But one of the parents you should be able to blame. Again, it's a hypothesis. You would never tell a child that their parent caused them to have a syndrome, but as scientists, we can form hypotheses about what we think might have done that, or we can infer, based on what we've seen and studied, we can kind of infer what parent probably is responsible. All right, once you do that, it says label and circle the zygote offspring that experienced the disorder. Okay, part B we haven't got to yet. That's the part where we create a simple Punnett square, just a 4-box Punnett square, nothing too complicated, and we show, and we would eventually circle which offspring has the syndrome. And you may have more than one. You may need to circle more than one. Again, it says, to complete the Punnett square, it says view parent history. Well, you're viewing parent history to decide which gamete led to the syndrome. And here you would have already decided if these were sperm, and then you could put tails on them to show that they're sperm. Or down here you would have decided that they were eggs because you're blaming the mother, right? You're hypothesizing or inferring the mother's responsible, right? So one of the parents. And when you decide that, what we're showing here is not allele inheritance. We're showing chromosome inheritance because the alleles come from chromosomes, and all we really care at this point with the Punnett square is showing chromosome inheritance. So we'll put the chromosome. So you pick 2 eggs here or 2 sperm here, and you're going to put the chromosome that, or you're going to put the gamete that has that's going to lead to the syndrome, plus any other egg or sperm genotype that you want. So one of the sperm or eggs you choose has to be the one you think is causing the syndrome. The other ones you choose is up to you. All right, and then in the inside you would show 4 boxes with the number of chromosomes you get, and at least one of them should have too many or too few chromosomes, or a broken chromosome. And then you circle that because it's the one you're blaming for the disorder. So you just show that once the faulty egg or sperm became fertilized with the other gamete, which child was it that would have had the disorder, right? And then finally, it's here, it says, write a summary of how meiosis, which was the first box, and how fertilization, which is the Punnett square, are responsible for the syndrome. So you need to write a paragraph, and you can on your paper form of this, using these words here. So you should be able to explain your thinking using academic language, the scientific language of a geneticist and a doctor, and you're going to use the words sister chromatid, meiosis, fertilization, chromosome, homologous chromosome, and cell divisions. You'd use any of those terms, and you can use more. I'm just saying at minimum you should use these to be able to explain what happened here and here. And again, all you're doing is summarizing your findings. So in your own words, what did you learn that happened during meiosis and during fertilization to produce the syndrome? And once again, if these terms are unfamiliar, go back to your notes that cover those terms, which is 39 to the beginning, right? But 39 should be the last one to help you, which is homologous chromosomes. All right, the next task on the Chapter 10 project, day 2, is to deepen your understanding of what's producing the syndrome. Now, you do know what chromosomes are involved, and you do know which gametes should have fertilized each other to produce your patient's syndrome. But you don't understand as much as a scientist as you might like about what happened with the parents and how their lifestyle and what the parents did to potentially have had a kid with this syndrome. So you're going to dig a little deeper into understanding what happened with the parents that could have made a problem with meiosis, or when the parents formed their own gametes. So what you're going to do is you're going to review your parent history and decide what's a more valuable article for you to read. I have 2 articles provided, and they'll be on the counter for you. And you have to decide, should I be reading an article based on parents who smoke and how that might affect gametes, the process of smoking and how that might affect gametes, or do I need to look at an article that talks about how old the parents were and problems that can come when parents are old and produce gametes? So reread your parent history, look at their ages, look at their lifestyle, were they smokers, and decide which article is most appropriate for you. Once you choose that article, it comes with questions and tasks. One of the first things is to underline or highlight unfamiliar words. You're going to go through this paper article you have, and you're going to highlight any unfamiliar words. Your responsibility when you underline or highlight words is you should be wondering what they mean. You've already recognized you don't fully understand the term, or it's one you haven't thought about a lot. You should be taking that time then to use the laptop or your phone to further research those words just to better understand them. That's the purpose of highlighting or underlining the unfamiliar words. If you don't fully understand the article, you may not fully get the information you need, so you can write your report and explain how the parent's family history led to, problemed gametes and, of course, the child's syndrome. All right, helping you move through the article are different questions for the paragraph, so you got to just find parts in the paragraph that can help you answer the following questions. So you're using the text article here to answer these questions here. And the article for this one is the age of parents, and it tells you in paragraph 1, which is here, or paragraph 2, right? All right, the next article possible is smokers. So if the parents were smokers, this article has a lot of terms that are complicated, so you should be able to underline or highlight at least 10 to 20 terms. You should have tons of highlighting or underlining in there. Also, you should not be expected to understand every part of this article about cigarette smoke and its effect on sperm, but you should be able to pull general ideas of what they're saying, or you should be able to talk to me and try to better understand the article. So on your own, you should be able to understand. I would expect you to be able to understand about 50% of that article. I don't expect you to understand full 100%. The questions I ask, though, guide you into focusing on the parts that should be clear to you and should help you understand. This article has 3 paragraphs, 1, 2, and 3, and there's questions specific for both. Once you answer your questions for this article or this one, the next task is to summarize it. For the age, the one about parents' age, there's 2 paragraphs. In your own words, and without copying, you're going to summarize with a sentence or two about what paragraph 1 and 2 was, what you remembered about paragraph 1, and you'd write that in your own words. What you remember about paragraph 2, and then finally you would say this article focused on blank, so you'd pull ideas from paragraph 1 and 2 to write a new original summary about what the overall article was about, and then you would report on what the research revealed. So what does the research say about the age of parents when they try to form gametes or sperm and egg? The next thing, the final thing, is the more complicated task, which is you need to pull together all the research you've done so far. And that's a complex task, so we created a little table to try to help you organize your thoughts. It says, compare info from part 2 through 6 with part 9. Part 9 was the articles. It says smoking article, but any of the articles. So part 9 is just where we looked at articles. But parts 2 and 6, let's go over real quick. What was parts 2 and 6? Well, that's simple. This was the front and back worksheet right here. This side, when you identified what the syndrome was your patient had, and this side where you explained meiosis and the Punnett square inheritance, or the heredity part, right? This is part 2 through 6. So you're going to look and study these 2 pages, and then up here, you're going to provide information about each one. You're going to, how is part 2 through 6 similar to anything you learned about in the article? And you would give 3 different things that show how the article has anything to do with 2 through 6 here. And then you're going to come up with a shared title. What words or categories of information could you place what they have in common with? So parts 2 through 6 with the article. What do they have in common? You'd put that in this box here. How are they different, though? The article that you read and parts 2 through 6 here don't share all the exact same information, because it doesn't. What are things that they talk about that are different from one another? And the things that they share are important, but the things that they don't share are also important because they provide you with unique things. Both the article and your own research about the chromosome on Learn Genetics, they both provide you with good information that are different. You need to share that here. What does the article give? Right. So you could say article discussed blank. And then you could say part 2 through 6, research,